You're listening to Crazy Shit in Real Estate. You'll be amazed at all these wild but true situations that others have found themselves in. Because on this show, you'll hear uncensored, unbelievable stories from the world of real estate. I'm Leigh Brown. Let's dive right in. Before you get the rest of the story, I'd love to share a quick message from today's sponsor. Hey y'all, just going to take a quick break from this conversation to let you know about the sponsor of today's episode. That sponsor is, well, frankly, it's me. It's Leigh Brown University. Look, it's no secret that real estate is crazy competitive, getting more so every day. And when the pie doesn't get any bigger, but the people wanting a piece of it do, you've got to figure out a competitive advantage. And that's why I created Leigh Brown University. It's everything you need from soup to nuts, cradle to grave, point A to point B, whatever point B is. Each of you has different goals. So maybe you're a new to the career realtor, or you're a super experienced pro who can't figure out that next level. There's something in my course that's going to help you break through. It's designed for you before I even met you. So enroll in Leigh Brown University today. You go to www.leighbrownu.com. and I'll see you there. Now, back to this amazing content. Hello, friends. Leigh Brown here, and welcome to Crazy Shit in Real Estate. Today, we have a professional realtor from the Bay Area, and I know y'all have lots of questions about that very expensive wild market. And Kaajal has not one, not two, but three different stories to tell, plus a little bit of market insight on that area. So tune in for Kaajal Shahani. Check the show notes for all of her links at the end, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Kaajal, you got to tell me a little bit about you, where you're located, what you do in and around the real estate arena, and just give us a little bit of insight into you.
Sure, absolutely. So I've been in real estate for 18 years now, located in Bay Area, very close to Silicon Valley. That's kind of where the craziness spins off from, right? But born and raised in California.
So 18 years in the Bay Area, you've seen some insanely wild changes, because that's from basically the birth of big technology, because it was happening. But of course, we had the big pets.com crash, and then it comes roaring back. And now we're in the era of they're pretty much oligarchs of their own making, and the market has responded as well. So talk to us a little bit about 18 years and that specific odd market. What's the biggest surprise to you as a professional over 18 years, what you've seen?
Oh my gosh. So little history. I did sell real estate in downtown Chicago in my early 20s. So I did start my career.
So last year, right?
Yeah, totally. So it's very different selling from downtown Chicago, where you're working with really nice young couples. They're looking at their first home as their forever home and all that fun stuff. And then you move over to California, which was 18 years ago, 2004, 2005, when I first started here. Totally different ballgame, even back then. So pre-2010, the market was very different. It was very fast-paced. But 2010 hit and everything exploded, right? 2010 hit and short sales, California was flooded with short sales, all that fun stuff. And I think the most, going back to your question of what's so surprising, is from 2010 to 2021, now it's only been, it's 11 years. It's not that long. Properties that I sold in 2010 to now, some are like 10x value. It's absolutely crazy. And I think our market is so flooded with stock money. And that's kind of what funds real estate. And obviously the interest rates being all-time low definitely helps the market. But that's probably the most shocking thing, is things that I sold in 2005 to 2010 to now, a whole different world.
Okay, so I'm glad you mentioned that stock comment, because in a normal person's market over here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and when I talk to other normal realtors, we're always like, where do these people in the Bay Area get the money? Because the numbers you're dealing with are just so insane that if I think about a typical 30-year-old couple and they're each even making six figures, it's still a giant leap from their very solid incomes to qualifying for a mortgage of that size. So give us in the regular part of the country a little bit of insight as to how that market is fueled, because I think that's also, as you would probably agree, a contributor to how high those prices have gone, because people, if they can make it happen, they can compete for it.
The affordability in the Bay Area has so much to do with the stock market, honestly. And I'd say that when the stock market, let's say, crashes, which, obviously.
But hang on, what's the word for it? That's adjust. It's going to adjust, right?
Yes. So you'll have a week where the stock market crashes, and then you find all these buyers, like, just, they're kind of quiet and, not doing much. And then the second it bounces back, it's like the overbidding frenzy continues. So we deal with that a lot. And kind of to your point, the younger folks that are joining Silicon Valley, they are getting these beautiful sign-on bonuses. They are getting beautiful stock options. So they play it very, very well. They'll time their purchase for when their stock is vested. They know that that money is going to go towards their down payment. So they time it very well. And we're part of that journey. I'm very much part of that conversation as to timing their purchase. So the funny part is, I started selling when I was 23. I was 22, 23. I'm 42 now. And you don't realize, obviously, like, you age, but you don't really feel like it. Yeah, you've had a couple kids along the way and all that fun stuff. But through this process, now my first time home buyer, their average age is like 28. And they're jumping into the market at like minimum 1.5, like their pre-approval is 1.5. They can definitely go higher, but their comfort range is 1.5. And then you think about, okay, what can you get for 1.5? You would think a lot, but it's not. That's kind of where the market is. That's where you jump in for a single family, $1.5 million for 1,500 square foot older home.
And that's why when they come here, they're like, you mean I get 6,000 square feet and a pool and a half an acre?
Yes.
They get like an estate for what is a starter home in the Bay Area. And it's the whole reason that friends who are watching and listening to this, whenever you hear somebody talk about the national real estate market, stop listening to them, because right here, we're showcasing to you that every market has its different markers, its different metrics, and real estate's really about the micro level. There's the macro level is just for cocktail parties, frankly, and it means nothing because it's so wildly different.
Absolutely.
So in looking at your market, what are you seeing in terms of rentals right now? Because I know the Bay Area has had some pretty interesting concepts put forth about what landlords should be able to do and tenants' rights and all of that, but you're in a market where you have a desperate need for housing of all sorts and all price ranges. But that doesn't seem to be affecting the legislative, well, just to say common sense, because we need more common sense. But what are you seeing as a professional on the ground?
Yeah. So ADUs, accessory dwelling unit, like yes, that's become like a very big buzzword here. But granted, those are for rentals, right? People are not building and selling those. Those are to create housing. Granted, I would say that most people are, I don't want to say most, but a lot of people are building ADUs because they're very easily approved per cities, but they're not being rented. Like, a lot of them are being used for home offices. A lot of them are being used for, this is California. Welcome to California. And then you do have a lot of multi-unit options for rentals. But for the most part, there are so many buyers in our market that you get to a certain point of a rental amount that people just say, why wouldn't I buy? At this low interest rate, I have the down payment. Why wouldn't I just buy? So they would rather buy, let's say, a condo townhouse valued at $1 million versus renting for $4,000 or $5,000. That's kind of what we're experiencing. The job market's super strong in our market. So that's what's fueling people to just jump over to like, hey, let me just purchase.
So for the record, those of y'all that are not super familiar with accessory dwelling units, there is an episode that I did several months ago with Rogelio Martinez. He is one of the tops of ADU. He's brilliant in terms of the regulatory legislative space and also in the building and permitting side. So go back and find that episode if you want to get educated. But what Kaajani and are talking about. Oh, Kaajani, I just combined your name.
You just combined my name.
Kaajani. Okay, great. So I renamed you. What we're talking about here, though, is the intention of those was you could add this granny flat or tiny house to your lot, rent it out for additional income, or to your aging parents, or rent it to your child who's trying to leave the house, so that you could alleviate some of the demand issues. But when the market numbers get completely out of balance, the public's going to do what the public's going to do. And I will say, I said it before, I'll say it again. It's the one thing I think California's gotten right on housing is statewide approval of ADUs. And the problem just becomes on the municipal level as you get deeper down. But anyway, so Kaajal, I'm not going to call you Kaajani. I'm going to have to really fight that in my head now that I've done that. I say this as somebody who's never called Leigh. I'm always Leigh Brown. I just have one name. So 18 years in a very specific wild market where you've seen people with probably more money than they have good sense. I know you have seen some crazy things. So what's the story you came to the show with today? The one thing that you're like, you are never going to believe this happened.
Oh God, there's probably so many things. And I think
you do a top 2 or top 3. You have permission since I renamed you.
So I think in 2021 has been the absolute wildest year, probably US round, right? Like it's not just California. I would say, I think the values, and this can be a spinoff any case, but the values that we see here where somebody purchased a home in 2015, 16 in California, depending on what city, I've sold their home where their profit has been $1 million, where they're turning that into their second home, right? Their second purchase. They're young and they buy a $3-4 million house with $1 million down payment. Like, that's a good problem to have.
Absolutely, it is, as long as they stay invested in real estate. So we'll give them high fives for that. But it's also, when you mention an amount of a gain like that, the public also doesn't understand that the profit you make on your house is going to be subject to taxation above a certain level. So capital gains do come into effect. And this is why realtors do our level best to communicate with the decision makers on tax situations, because there's not very many people out there that get to experience it day to day like Kaajal and I do, because we're with people when they're making this decision saying, look, just so you know, a big chunk of that's going to go back to Uncle Sam if you sell. It's just part of the consideration. But when they're selling these houses after owning it for 4 years, where are they going? Are they staying in the Bay Area? Are they going to Fresno where it's cheaper? Or are they coming to North Carolina? I mean, I've had a whole bunch of them.
Maybe we should talk offline. Yes, but North Carolina is actually a state that a lot of Californians have either invested in or moved to. Truly speaking, we should speak.
That's who I had under contract this weekend, is another investor from Fresno buying multifamily here, because the returns don't exist in California. They exist here. And he and his wife are looking at it as, let's do what Wayne Gretzky did. You go where the puck is going, and the jobs are here and the climate is here. And California people will still have California, but why not be a little bit more diversified?
Oh, absolutely. So North Carolina, big one. And that's mostly investors. I haven't had that many that have physically moved there, but North Carolina is a big investment hub for us. Texas has been a huge migration this year. I myself have probably sold 8 homes just this year, and all of them have relocated to Texas. Another kind of hotspot recently has been Utah. So Utah. So Silicon Slopes, which is like a nice little area, I ended up going to visit. A lot of techies have moved there from California. It feels very California minus the snowy mountains behind you, the backdrop. But the feel of it feels very California, and it's like an hour and a half flight. So it's quite close. So you're still on the West Coast. So it feels nice for Californians, I think. And then Arizona, I have a lot of retirees that have sold their homes here and have moved to Arizona into beautiful Scottsdale properties and Sedona properties. I had one elderly, the sweetest client ever. She had lived in her home for 50 some years, original condition, sold for $1.05 million.
What did you pay for it, Kaajal?
Say that again. Oh, what did she pay for it? Oh God, it was like $38,000 or something. It was crazy. So, and she had, so this is, I call this a first world problem. Somebody that has to pay capital gains tax, right? It's like such a first, I mean, that's the cost.
It's an excellent problem to have. It is.
It's an excellent problem to have. So she had capital gains beyond her 500,000, but she moved that money over and she actually moved to Vegas and a friend of hers moved to Sedona. So that was kind of their hotspots. But yeah, so that's kind of where they're moving to. North Carolina, Texas, Utah are big ones. Oregon has been huge. Granted, Oregon on the investment property side for Californians does not make sense because the prices went up so drastically, but it's been a huge migration. So a lot of Californians have moved up to Oregon, especially the work from home, the continuous work from home, or maybe they need to be in California like once a month or twice a month and it's an easy flight and you can get, I mean, I've heard prices there have gotten wild, but 700 to $1 million for a single family, where here it's like a townhouse. So it's kind of a nice place. But going back to your original question of what's the craziest thing? Okay, here's my crazy. About, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, and I swear I've had a few of these, but this is probably the craziest. I sold a home in Fremont, California, which is where Tesla is. So Tesla, Fremont on the map. Some Facebook campuses there too. So it's a very diverse city. Now that I said diverse, you know where I'm going to go with this. And so there was this home that I sold to a client of mine, and it was located right next to a place of worship where he wanted to be. So it was like ideal location. The house needed a total overhaul. So about 2-3 years ago, we got this home for $785,000, which was a single family, 3-bed, 1-bath, rundown, needed everything. But he was okay with it because he said, I just want the location. Anyways, long story short, we purchased the home. It was key day. We show up and the sellers who had inherited this property were kind of, I mean, they owned the property through inheritance, but they were kind of squatters, if that makes sense. So they decided they didn't want to leave. Their realtor was very helpful, but she said, hey, Kaajal, just go at 5 p.m. I had a talk with them. They have their stuff out, just go. So fine, regular key day, we're excited. We show up. I get to the door and the key wasn't working. So I'm knocking on the door, hoping somebody was in there. And I hear these very ferocious dogs barking. And I'm like, I never heard these dogs before when I came to this house. So I walk in, they open the door. I didn't see anybody. I walked in. I don't know why I wasn't scared of this, but
we're realtors and we walk around in this. I'm fine, Fog.
Yeah, like, I got this. I have keys in my hand. I'm fine. So I walk in and there are weapons on the floor. There were signs all over the walls in like red marker saying, I don't even know if this is okay to say this on this podcast, but I'm going to say it anyways.
I have the black box with the E in it so you can say
So on the walls in red marker, and it looked like a kid wrote it, it said, go back to your own country. And the funniest part, so I was like, whoa, I was born and raised in Fremont, California. I don't know what to tell you. So I walk in and I'm looking at this and I'm like, should I continue? Should I not? In the meantime, my clients showed up and they were freaked out. And I told them, I said, look, this is key day. We closed on the home. Their realtor's on our side. Their realtor said it was empty. Clearly this happened after she checked. She was super sweet. She was by our side. I called her. She showed up. She said, let's just walk in together. So we walked through the house.
You're taking pictures of everything?
Oh, I took pictures of everything because I was like, this is probably the craziest thing I've dealt with. So out comes the owner out of this door where these ferocious dogs were barking and said, get out of my house, go back to your own country. Starts saying it to me. I mean, I was floored, right? And so I was like, okay, hey, we closed on this house. This house is my client's. I will walk out of here, but you need to hand us over the keys. She didn't. And basically ran me out of the house with the dog. I'm dog friendly, but these dogs were, they were scratched. God knows what happened to these dogs.
They were trained.
Yeah. So I ran out of there. I went in my car and I said, wow, that's the craziest thing I've ever been in. But at the same time, I was like, what am I going to do? So the next day I told my broker about it. I came home and I told my husband. He was like, obviously you have every right to be there and to get keys and all that fun stuff. So the listing agent, the seller's agent said, okay, we're going to show up at so-and-so time with the cops and we'll have the cops be involved and we'll deal with it. So we had an appointment for the next morning. I told my clients, do not come. I will go. I will wear tennis shoes and a zip up. And I'm not going to show up in like work shoes and all that fun stuff in case I have to run again. Anyway, so we showed up. My husband actually hired a security guard. This was the best. Okay, so if anybody doesn't know this,
sweetheart.
Yeah, so who knew? You can go on Yelp and hire a bodyguard. You can hire, I didn't know this. So this guy comes, the sweetest guy ever. But when you see him, you're going to think like,
Was he like Mr. Giant Bouncer look?
Oh, for sure. Like I felt like I was entering a club. Like, I mean, he was so intimidating, but so sweet, like so sweet. His name was Carl. And
Carl can I carry Carl around with me sometime?
Oh yeah, he's just amazing. So he shows up. The cops were just sitting in their car because they're like, you don't really need me. I'm like, great. So we walk in, the dogs were still there. The weapons were still there. It got worse. They left God, like bodily fluids. That's all I'm going to say. So anyways, but they physically left, which was great. The worst, I mean, it was so bad. The backyard, they left like chainsaws. I'm not sure, honestly, what happened in this house prior to this, but
I don't think you want to know.
I didn't want to know. Yeah. So luckily, long story short, it worked out. Carl got paid for his job. I kept Carl in my Rolodex after that because I was like, that was the most helpful thing ever. And he was telling me, he said he does tenant evictions all the time and he's there for intimidation. But I actually this was not that long ago. This was approximately 2017. Yeah.
Like what in your mind gets disconnected that you don't realize you sold the house, you have to go, besides all the illegal things.
Besides all the illegal things and besides telling me to go back to my own country, I was like shocked.
I mean, which country do you want me to go back to? I mean,
I said, sure. I'm actually in my birth city right now. So hand over the keys.
I mean,
It was wild.
But this is where I think the public forgets this sometimes because they pick the realtor that they like and that they trust and who has knowledge and competence. And I still believe that 98% of people don't walk around with straight up hatred in their hearts, and they pick the realtor that they want. And you walk in the door with them and your clients were probably as shocked as you to have this kind of crap thrown at you because they didn't see you that way.
Not at all. Not at all. And they were
It was my realtor. What is the problem?
I mean, it was like next level buyer's remorse too, right? So it was like this another level of emotion that I was like, hey guys, don't worry. We got this. But I felt so bad. I'm like, you spent your hard-earned money on this house and we knew it was a fixture. We knew that they were going to just go.
But they want to be close to their place of worship, but this ugliness is living over here. But then again, you have to remind somebody like that, the people leaving are the neighbors that everybody else wants to go. So they're going to be glad to have you.
Well, actually, it was funny because now years down the line, some neighbors have said that family was like the crazy, and they were original owners. So they were there since the 50s and it kept passing down with the trust to different kids and all that stuff. So it ended up being fine. I mean, they've been there. They totally remodeled the house. They saged it, like whatever.
I'm a Southern Baptist and I still think that sage stuff probably is necessary in some houses because there's negative in the air.
Oh, totally. It was the wildest thing. But that's honestly probably my wildest realtor story. I mean, I've been in situations where I was like, am I safe here? I don't know. I've been in a house recently where my listing got broken into, but I mean, I wasn't physically there. You just deal with that stuff, right?
Well, to see the words thrown at you and to hear the words thrown at you and the dogs and the weapons, how long did it take you to work your way through that emotional baggage when you went out showing property again? Because it has to have taken a minute.
Honestly, I was totally fine.
You're such a realtor, Kaajal. I had the keys. I was safe. Oh, they were nasty, but I'm going to go over here because.
I mean, it was fine. We deal. I feel like as realtors, we deal. I mean, there's so many other crazy people. Here's my second. I'll make this super short. My second really, really crazy. I mean, this probably got to me a little bit more like psychologically, emotionally than this other scenario. But I had a client who seemed very like quote unquote normal, right? But I put their house on the market Totally fine. I got an offer on it. The husband and wife accepted it. The night we went into contract, I get a call. So my phone's on silent at night, but I don't know why. I just woke up that night and it was like 1 or 2 in the morning. This was years ago. I got to say, this is probably 8, 9, 10 years ago. And one of my kids was probably like little enough where I had to wake up in the middle of the night. And my phone rang and I'm like, oh, that's weird. And it was a local number. So it wasn't like a spam looking number. And I answered it and it was a local hospital. And they were calling to say that my seller tried to kill himself because he was so stressed out he was selling his house.
Well, why did they call you? Are they calling the sign in the yard?
I didn't mean to chuckle there, but I was like, oh my God, if somebody can't deal with, and he was getting a wild price. It wasn't like a forced sale at all. Like he was just financially really stressed out about purchasing his next home, which I wasn't a part of, thank God. I was just a part of their sale. But apparently the wife, who was super sweet, and I felt so bad for her, the wife told the intake, like doctor, whatever, that he left a note saying that he was very stressed out financially and he can't deal with it. And he left both realtors' names and numbers. And I'm like, whoa, I don't want to be a part of this. Like, you know, it's almost for a second, I was like, did I stress him out? And I was like, no.
But how weird. I mean, I know that we get intimately involved in our clients' lives, but we don't go that far.
No, I mean, I staged there. He was very involved, very happy. Like clearly there was something else going on. Anyways, long story short, I canceled I told the buyer's agent, I'm like, hey, this is literally life or death. Like, let's just tell your buyer you don't even want to buy this house. So the next morning, I don't even remember the details, but I think by then the deposit hadn't even gone in. We had just got into contract that night. So we canceled. I kind of wished them luck. Luckily, they came home and the wife called me and said, thank you so much for answering. And thank you so much for kind of like helping us through that process. I got the home de-staged real quick. The funny part is, so I kind of lost touch. Honestly, I lost touch. I didn't even keep them on my like database. I just kind of wished them luck and let them be. And yeah, it was fine. Years later, I ran into him at the grocery store.
Because of
I almost panicked because like, oh my God, thank God he's alive. Like that was the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, thank God he's alive. So he said hi and he actually addressed it. And he said that he ended up getting help and manage his stress. And he felt like he was very stressed out with work. And he talked about it very briefly. And I didn't even ask him where they live now. I just kind of like let it be. But that was probably my second craziest. But that kind of got to me because I was like, wow, you never know. You put your sign in front of the person's house. You don't know what they're going. You think you know because of the conversations you've had, but you don't really know what they're going through.
And honestly, this is something I think realtors like ourselves who've been in the business for a lot of years, we've got to do a better job of explaining this to early career realtors. This is a really big deal. And I think too many people in this profession, they drop the sign, they ask some questions, they move on, and they're not looking for the clues and listening for those real problems. And I got to say, the mark of you as a true professional was that you did not play that game. Well, y'all signed a contract and you need to move on with it. You said, you know what, this is not good. And this needs to end. And you handled it with the other agent and with the buyer so that you could protect the best interest of this man and his wife, regardless of the outcome to you. So, high five for being that kind of a professional.
High five. Yeah, it's not worth it.
And if you're an early career realtor listening to us, listen to us say to you, it's not worth it. Do not stake your career, your emotions and their life on a transaction, because the money can't mean more to the realtor than it does to the parties involved. And in that case, it wasn't the money. This is overwhelming.
Yeah. And really, I really say this. And actually on that note, if there are new realtors, I get this question so much from new realtors. I really think the motto, I think this in general, but like in our careers, because we deal with so many different types of people, like nothing is worth your peace of mind, like nothing. I mean, I don't know how we're doing on time, but I do have a third crazy snippet of a story.
We're long, but you're very fantastic. So I say carry on and tell it again.
So Speaking of early in career,
need people to listen to this one.
So very early in my career, so very early, this was probably year 2 or 3 in California. I sold a condo, first time home buyer, nice, like simple couple, techies, whatever. Anyways, we stayed in touch a couple years, like maybe 2 years after that. So now this is my 5th year, which is, you're still new at 5 years, right?
But at 5 years, you're a survivor. Let's be honest. So high, you're like, I've made it, top 15%. Here we go.
Right? It's like, no, you're no. This is like an ongoing process. So this couple calls me and says, hey, we're moving out of country. Actually, sorry, the couple doesn't call me. The husband calls me, says, we're moving out of the country. Can you help me rent out my condo? I said, yeah, absolutely. I don't do property management, but if you want help on the side, hey, I'll help you with your ad and this and that. So I helped him. I found him a tenant. Doesn't mention anything shady to me, okay, at all. Nothing. There was no like clues or anything. He moves out of the country. We stay in touch. Like, how's my tenant? I was at that point helping him. Gosh, this was so long ago. This wasn't even when like somebody could pay Venmo. So the rent was coming. The rent was like a physical check. And so randomly, if the tenant missed the mail, they would say, hey, Kaajal, can I give you the check? Can you give it to your client? I said, yeah, no problem. I would mail it, whatever. One day, so I'm driving one of my clients in my car and my phone rings and it was this client and he never used to call me from out of the country. So I thought it was like, oh my God, my water heater burst. My tenant called me. Can you help me? So I'm like, oh, let me just answer this real fast. I answered it. This guy was on something. I don't know what it was. Alcohol, drugs, whatever it may be. And he starts talking about how he quit his techie job in the Bay Area to move to another country. This is so inappropriate. To make adult films. Okay. So that was my reaction too. Then he starts telling me, oh, it gets so bad.
Is he producing or acting in these porn?
Oh my God. So he tells me he's never made this kind of money before. Okay. But while he was talking, he was slurring his words. So I'm like, clearly he's on something. Then I'm thinking at the country that he told me he's in. I like in that second that I was like floored. And my client, the best part was I had a client in the passenger seat. Oh. Luckily, this client was like so amazing. I knew her very well. And she's looking at me like, oh my God, do you deal with this? And I'm like, this is my first time I've ever experienced something like this. But he said he was clearly on something because he was slurring his words. Like the words weren't making sense. I started recording because I'm like, I don't know why you're calling me to tell me this. Please tell me you're calling me to say that the water heater burst, but this just came out of your mouth. But no, didn't talk about the condo at all. So he starts telling me he makes adult films. The best part, here's the kicker. He apparently makes so much, it's so quote unquote, so much more money than he did in the tech world. And he tells me the main person in his movies is his mother-in-law.
Oh.
I didn't know if I wanted to throw up or if I wanted to punch a wall or if I wanted, I should have hung up the phone at that point, but
you should not have. You were recording. You're like, there's going to be more.
Yeah, there's going to be more. Oh, there was so much more to that he started telling me how much money he's making and what countries were his best clients. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, what? So anyways, I was like, oh, so how's the condo doing? Is the tenant okay? I tried to switch the subject real fast. He wouldn't let me. He was just rolling. So I eventually just pretended like I lost service and hung up because I'm like, this conversation's not going anywhere. He clearly does not need any like real estate help at this point.
He might have needed help. And I'm just going to point out to you viewers and listeners, this is why you should answer your phone as a realtor. If you screen your calls, you're going to miss out on this story. But my second question is for you. Did Mr. Technology background combined with porn, is he the guy who started OnlyFans?
Oh my God, you're right. Oh God. Well, I'll tell you.
Because if he didn't, he missed his moment because he
So that day I went home. My husband gets a kick out of all these stories. He's like, oh my God, you deal with the craziest people. So I went home and I told him, and then I was like, wait, okay, I'm going to pass him off to a property manager, but I'm not going to do it today. Like, I'm not going to do it the next day. Yeah, like I'll do it tomorrow. I'll wait a couple of days. So I passed him off over to a property manager and he never responded. I actually never heard from him. Okay, but get this, I never heard from him after that. Well, because he probably realized he was on something and he made the wrong phone call and to the wrong person. 16 years later, like a year or two ago, I get like a lead on, I think it was Zillow or LinkedIn or something. And it said he's looking for a condo in Irvine, California. And so I looked at the lead and I'm like, oh, okay. But then I saw the email address and the phone number and I'm like, oh my God, no.
Wait a minute. I know this.
So I forwarded it on, gave someone else the lead. I don't service Irvine, California anyway, so it's fine.
Well, you're trying to be a professional who knows your geographic area. That's all.
That's all. Yep. Luck. Yeah. I think we've all dealt with crazy, but those are probably
the mother-in-law. Ooh.
And the worst part was the mother-in-law lived with them in this condo in Fremont. And so I had met the mother-in-law multiple times. And I'm like, oh my God, is that like, is she doing it for the money or is he making her? I don't know. I don't want to go there.
But I mean, well, several of my friends and I make comments all the time about how Hollywood's out of ideas because they keep regenerating Indiana Jones and the Wonder Years and everything. Well, maybe you should call and sell this as a script because somebody will buy this. But I don't think it's going to land in the theaters I can take my teenagers to. So
yeah, totally. And I definitely don't want to be part of that movie. I'll be anonymous.
Be the consultant on the other end.
I'll be anonymous.
Right. So Kaajal, if somebody's looking for a true professional in the Bay Area who can handle a lot of different kind of things, how can they find you and receive access to your knowledge and expertise and professionalism?
Absolutely. So Instagram, Kaajal Shahani Real Estate, DM me. My website is just my name, kaajalshahani.com. Google me. There's not a whole lot of Kaajal, so you will find me.
What if they look for a Kaajani? Because now I've called you that. I think you have to buy that domain or I am, and we'll point it to your site. But don't worry, friends, because I know you're thinking, I don't know how to spell this when Leigh's talking. It's fine. All of the links are in the show notes for this episode, including all of her social handles, so you can go connect online. And frankly, I think this is the kind of realtor that you want to network with, because I have enjoyed the heck out of this, and I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.
All right, guys, make sure you subscribe, give us 5 stars, leave a little comment because I know you enjoyed this. And I think you should name if you like story 1, story 2, or story 3. And we kind of know which one you're going to land on because we know realtors. But we enjoyed having you with us today. Tune in for more and I'll see you next time.
As always, I'm so super thrilled that you joined in for more crazy shit. And if you're a realtor, investor, inspector, lender, or just a regular human being who happens to have an unbelievable story that you need to tell the world about, or frankly, you just need to one-up the story you just heard, then make sure to DM me on Instagram at Leigh Thomas Brown, or tweet me at Leigh Brown, or frankly, any social network where you hang out. I'm there. And if you had some fun, then you totally want to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes.